Doing two NFL player props here on PrizePicks for Sunday, October 20th. Before I get started, you guys, link in the description below. Hop into the premium Discord. $9.30 per month, 31 cents per day. So I post all the plays I'm making on PrizePicks. We have other cappers in there as well. Super positive community overall. Everyone in the Discord just trying to help each other cash. I also want to mention I'm not a gambling expert and this is not financial advice. Simply just plays I'm personally looking at making. Hopefully giving you guys some insight and analysis to make your own player prop decisions. Again, no one's pressing submit on those parlays other than yourselves. We got two player props that I am targeting here for this Sunday, October 20th slate. I do also want to talk about Daily Grind Fantasy really quick, you guys. The DFS optimizer over at Daily Grind is an absolute elite tool that I do use on a regular basis to add plays into my parlays. Again, with the link in the description below, using promo code TUFF, you can get 25% off your first month at Daily Grind, whether you're on underdog, rebet, profit X, sleeper, parlay play, better picks, whatever platform you use, you can use Daily Grind Fantasy. Basically, it does all the hard work for you guys. Currently, the top play on the board for me recording this video for NFL will be David Montgomery over anytime touchdown, because it's listed on books at -120, and you can get it on PrizePicks here. Again, even odds. I mean, essentially everything on PrizePicks is pretty even odds. Drake May under 15.5 fantasy score, 54.27 odds to hit, because sportsbooks don't offer fantasy score lines. They take the passing yards, passing touchdowns lines and give you what their fantasy score line would be on these sportsbooks. And you can see here it's a 13.7 fantasy score on Caesars. It's 15.5 on PrizePicks, giving you essentially a discrepancy here, giving it 54.27 odds to hit. So again, it does all the hard work for you guys. Link in the description, promo code TUFF for 25% off your first month. But let's get into it, you guys. Two player props that I do like. Sunday, October 20th, NFL football. Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it. The first play I'm looking at here is going to be Jordan Addison, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings. I look his over 10.5 fantasy score here. At home versus Detroit, this game should be absolutely electric. Really looking forward to this one. Obviously a divisional game. NFC North, again, I'm a Bears fan if you guys did not yet know that already, and NFC North is the best division in football. Vikings 5-0, Lions 4-1. This has an absolutely massive game total here as well. 50.5 game total, 1.5 point spread. Vikings are going to be 1.5 point underdogs here. And I like Jordan Addison. I think there's going to be a ton of scoring overall. And when you kind of look at Jordan Addison just right off the bat on PrizePicks compared to other Vikings, I mean, I know TJ Hawkinson might play. He's looking like he's actually not going to play. Justin Jefferson's at 19 fantasy score, and we know he's going to see double coverage throughout most of the game, which is why I'm liking to pivot to Jordan Addison here at 10.5. I think there's a ton of upside for him this season. And again, a small sample size through 3 games. He had 2 DNPs where he was hurt, and this first game of the year is actually the game he did get hurt. He had 22.9 PPR fantasy points against Green Bay at Green Bay. 6.6 against the tough New York Jets secondary. But you can see the opponent rank here. The Detroit Lions allow just a ton of their secondary is poor, right? They've been poor since last season. They're very good at stopping the run, which is why their kind of pass stats or defensive pass stats aren't great. 25.2 fantasy points per game PPR to the wide receiver. Actually, there's not even PPR. 22. What is this? 20. What was that at? Hold on. Let me go back to it. Massive PPR fantasy points that they are allowing to the wide receiver position overall. And you can see here, like when we take a look at different fantasy score lines, so 44.2 PPR fantasy points overall is what the Detroit Lions are allowing to wide receivers, right? We look through 3 games, they've allowed a ton of receiving yards, obviously a ton of targets, because their run defense is just that elite. And when you talk about the Vikings, right, the Vikings, the matchup for the Lions, which is why I do think this game definitely has the potential to be a shootout, is the Vikings are allowing essentially the most receiving yards, all the most fantasy points to wide receivers. So it should be a great spot for just a shootout overall, and I think there's a ton of upside here for scoring on both sides of the football. We look at wide receivers game log, PPR game log this season versus the Lions. We've seen actually 9 different wide receivers go for 11 plus fantasy points against the Detroit Lions. 9 different wide receivers. We saw Kupp have 32, Godwin 24, Marvin Harrison 17, Lamb 16. Like, Tyler Lockett had 11.1, 5 catches for 61 yards, clears the over on this line. I think with the touchdown upside, if he can see, I mean, his line's at 6.5 targets. If we go to Jordan Addison, in games when he sees 6.5 targets, like, his hit rate's pretty decent, and I think obviously the volume will be there for him. But you can see the hit rate when he does see at least 6 targets, right? Upside, ton of upside here on this one for when he does see those types of targets. And then, like I said, the Detroit Lions, this game should just be an absolute shootout. Not really overthinking this one. I just think there's a ton of value here on Jordan Addison, at 10.5, when we see Justin Jefferson at 19. Just a ton of upside here on this one. So that's the first play. The second play I'm looking at is going to be a receptions target prop, and it's going to be David Njoku. I like his over 6 reception targets. I think, again, a ton of upside here on this one without Amari Cooper now. Now, we see this game, home game for Cleveland. Cincinnati's going to be 5.5-point favorites, so Cleveland 5.5-point underdogs here at home. They're going to have to throw the ball eventually in this game, given how explosive Cincinnati's offense has been, but their defense hasn't been great either. Like, Cincinnati seems like they've been in shootouts every single game. In one game last season, he played without Amari Cooper. He had 8 targets against the Jets. Obviously, the Jets are kind of funneled to the tight end position. But we look at the Bengals, or we look more specifically at David Njoku last season. This had an elite hit rate, right? I think once Joe Flacco became the quarterback last year, you can see the type of hit rate when he at least pushed this line or went under. He was over this line in, I don't know, we can actually break it down over on Outlier. But really quick, I wanted to share this before I get into that. David Njoku, he's listed at under 1.5 receptions on books, and juiced kind of to go over. Minus 145 on Caesars, minus 135 on BetMGM to go over 4.5 receptions. So his reception target line at 6, I think, is just elite value, giving us just elite push potential. And then going back to receptionist target line, like 6 reception targets for David Njoku without Amari Cooper. He's kind of pretty much consensus. Most people expect him to dominate the target share now without Amari Cooper gone, and we kind of saw that last week with Amari Cooper not playing a ton of snaps last week. But even going back to David Njoku last season, like I said, hold on, let me go back to this here. Again, I try to make these videos in one shot, so I do apologize. You can see the hit rate, and even from week 1 to, he essentially, look at this hit rate last season, right? Just absolutely massive last season for David Njoku. We see tight ends game log this season versus the Cincinnati Bengals, and actually no tight end has gone over this line, but just last week we saw Andrews, Kolar, and Likely, who are 3 different tight ends for the Baltimore Ravens, combined for 5, 9, and 12 total targets to the tight end position. Zach Ertz had 5, and then they really haven't faced alpha tight end yet this season. So even going back to last season, I know that the Bengals did allow a ton of targets and production to the tight end, like dating back to last year. Let's actually take a look. I'm going to show you guys real quickly. 2023 to the tight end position. Again, I do these videos in one shot. The Bengals, right? Last season, they allowed the 4th most total receptions to the tight end. So I like this spot for David Njoku. I like targets, given he's juiced heavily over, not heavily, but juiced over minus 135 to go over 4.5 catches. I like over 6 targets in this one. 2 player props for this YouTube video. NFL Sunday, October 20th. Please drop a like. Check out all links in the description below. And as always, let's cash.